Can the Longhorns bring an upset in Dayton tonight? Texas insider Joe Cook joins us to preview the game, talk a little Texas football and baseball as well. That's next on Locked On Longhorns. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You are locked on to the Texas Longhorns. I'm your host, BK Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin native, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you for making Locked On Longhorns your first listen every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and tell your Longhorn friends about Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. On today's show, Joe Cook from Inside Texas and InsideTexas.com will join the show to talk Texas hoops, Texas football's newest assistant coach, and a little Longhorn baseball as well. Let's bring him on right now. You can find him on Twitter at JosephCook89, and you can find his great work over at InsideTexas.com. The great Joe Cook making his Locked On Longhorns debut. Joe, thanks so much for the time, brother. How you doing, man?
We're doing good. It's we're in the thick of March, and you think of basketball at that time, but when you're talking Longhorns, you got to talk spring football, you got to talk women's basketball, baseball, softball. It's all going on. You may figure that October may be the busiest month with conference play starting and stuff like that, but it really all piles up in the spring. It's a lot of fun, and it's a great time to talk everything burnt orange.
No doubt about it. Yeah, you and I were in school at the same time, and we've both been covering the Longhorns for a long time, and we know there's never a dull moment covering these teams. And, well, fortunately for us and fortunately for Texas fans everywhere, this athletic department as a whole is in a much better spot now than it was 10, 11, 12 years ago when you and I were in school.
We survived Steve Patterson. That's about all I can say.
Yes, we did. All right, let's talk some Texas basketball first. Let's go back in time before we talk about this game tonight. What was your level of surprise when you saw Texas's name pop up on the bracket on Selection Sunday?
I was watching every single 11 seed. You're not expecting them to break onto that 10 line. You're probably expecting them to go to Dayton. So we have stories. You pre-write a lot of things and get it ready. So right when things pop up, you're ready and you can hit publish. So every time they were going through the East and it would get to like number 6, I'm like, okay, okay, this section, number 6. And then finally gets to the Midwest region. We get to, Illinois at 6, and then Texas and Xavier pops up. I got concerned, I think like everybody else did when North Carolina popped in there. Because that expressed to me very quickly that they didn't really care about quad 1 record. They didn't really care that, despite you have to win your games. And I think they might be the only team in the tournament with fewer than 20 wins, or they're just about one of the only handful on there. Mm-hmm. So wins matter. Wins should matter. Quality wins should matter as well. And Texas, playing in the strongest league in the country, racked up just enough from playing in that league. 6 quadrant 1. Actually, I don't think all 6 were quadrant 1, thinking about LSU, but still 7 quad 1 wins. Get a couple there in the SEC tournament, show some signs of good ball, and earn just enough to make it into that field of 68. They still have to play in the first 4, though. They have to play an opponent they're mildly familiar with Sean Miller. That's not just from a couple of years ago on that Elite 8 run. That dates back to when he was at Arizona, when Rodney Terry was an assistant. But this is a chance to, move into what we really think is the real NCAA tournament, getting into the round of 64 and playing an Illinois team that, I'm not doubting their ability to maybe pull one over on the Illini. I feel like they have a tough matchup with Xavier come Wednesday night, however.
Yeah, I want to start with that, right? And we'll get to Illinois in a second and kind of your thoughts on what type of run this Longhorns team can go on. But starting with tonight's game against Xavier, look, this is about as close to a true road game as you could possibly play in the NCAA tournament, right? Xavier's located in Cincinnati. Cincinnati's just 50 miles or so away from Dayton. So it's going to be a very Musketeer-heavy crowd that the Longhorns have to play in front of this evening. Texas a 3.5-point underdog. I think in large part because of that. Your thoughts on Texas's chances and how they match up against the Xavier team?
Yeah, it was funny listening to Rodney Terry yesterday saying, like, I hope the Dayton fans who have Xavier as their rivals, it's like, that's like saying, like, oh, I hope the Texas fans come to Waco to watch the Baylor play and root against them or something like that. It's a lot of wishful thinking. It's not the Bearcats of Cincinnati. It's not the Crosstown Showdown. There's a school in state, but Ohio has a lot of schools. Just look at the MAC conference. But I looked at pace when it came to Xavier, and I go to Ken Palm. Sometimes I research that, and Texas is very middle in the pack when it comes to pace, about 170 something on offense. If you're in the upper third like Xavier is, you're moving, and especially when that's compared to some of the other teams in the league that Texas played against. So the big thing for me is making sure that there are no such things as lazy possessions in the NCAA tournament, and they have to make sure that holds true because Xavier likes to push the pace. They like to get back and try to get Texas and other teams in transition. I think Texas can manage there if they have the effort because it's not like they're lumbering any, like 270-pound guys or 240-pound fours down the floor. Like a lot of these guys are athletic and, as long as they have the wherewithal to get back, they get back. It's just that you have to do that. It's funny that one of the players that Texas did not face in the Sweet 16 and Zach Fremantle, who was on that roster, he's going to be a big part of this game. The other thing is you got another Indiana State guy, Conwell. I forget his first name. Texas has their two Indiana State guys with Julian Larry, Jason Kent, guy who missed two players, and all those Sycamores missed the tournament trying to make it into the round of 64 and I guess play on Friday. So lots of different things, but to me it's about, can Texas make the most of some of the new offensive wrinkles that they showed in Nashville, and can they get back in transition?
Yeah, Xavier's a great three-point shooting team. I think the good news for the Longhorns, Xavier's not that big. You mentioned Zach Fremantle. He's their starting five. He's 6'8", 6'9", so it's a rare time where Caden Shedrick and the Longhorns actually have the size advantage against another team on the low block. So that's good news for a Texas team that struggles against bigger teams. You kind of alluded to it a moment ago, Joe, like looking at this Midwest region as a whole. I mean, First four teams have had some success in the actual tournament. We've actually seen a couple of first four teams make it all the way to the Final Four with Shaka Smart's VCU team in 2011 and then UCLA in 2021. I don't know if anyone's predicting that for Texas, but Illinois on Friday, Kentucky's the 3 seed. You beat them in the regular season. That could be your team in the round of 32. Your thoughts on Texas's chance to maybe make a little bit of a run here?
I struggle seeing them in the second weekend. Heck, I could struggle seeing them in this weekend. I do think that they can manage what Xavier does really well because when you're talking about a lot of these teams, is Texas a better team than its record? Probably. Does their record indicate how tough the league was? Probably. Is it still about right, though? Yeah, when you got losses to teams like South Carolina, even Ohio State, even Arkansas, those are your peers and you have losses to them. So, but at the same time, they can jump up. They can make moves against teams like Kentucky, Texas A&M, hold Tennessee to a tight one, win on the road in Starkville. Like it's been very Jekyll and Hyde. But I feel like there's a renewed sense of confidence that Texas feels, you can make the whole, it's a new season cliche, but they just arrived in Nashville last week feeling like they had their full complement of players for the first time all year. How good are those players? Yeah, we haven't figured that out quite yet, or maybe we have, and that's why they're in the first four. But to have that full complement of depth, to have the ability to utilize different strategies that haven't been on tape all that much, like putting Tremont Mark at the 1 in the half court, like letting Jordan Pope, as a result, get off ball and work that way to get some open shots because he is a good shooter, allowing more opportunities to figure out how Arthur Kaluma can maybe get some isolation in the mid-range, because we know that this is just a team that they try to switch as much as they can to hunt the right matchup, and then they attack that matchup from there. It works when you have isolation players. It doesn't always look good. Sometimes it can look really ugly, but you can see at least some of the vision. When you have all those different isolation players, like basically Trey Johnson, Arthur Kaluma, Jordan Pope, Tremont Mark, and then you got the other guys around him, around them to make it work. You can see it. You can squint and look at it and see it. But at the same time, like, even if I have some optimism about what they might be able to do against Illinois, it's tough for me to see them getting past Kentucky again when it took a lot of effort and some Kentucky players being out, if I remember right, for that matchup in Austin. I know they're still dealing with the injury bug a little bit. I know everybody else is this year, but it's hard for me to see them. That'd be 3 games in 5 days. Teams don't have to do that very often. Texas couldn't win 3 games in 3 days. I know 3 games in 5 days isn't something they had to do a whole lot of this past year because the SEC is on like a Tuesday, Wednesday schedule when it comes to weeknight games. So it's tough to see this team making one of those UCLA type runs and making one of those Shaka type runs. Just kind of funny to mention here in this NCAA tournament.
More from Joe Cook of Inside Texas in a moment, including a conversation about whether or not what Texas does in the tournament will impact Rodney Terry's future in Austin. That's coming up right here on Locked on Longhorns. But first, shout out to Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts who are ready to help take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, our friends at Upwork make hiring simple and affordable. You can find the right talent. It's fast and easy to hire, and you get cost-effective growth. Again, affordable, top-tier freelancers to help scale your business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. And today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at Fabric. Life moves fast, especially when you have a family. One day you're watching your kids take their first steps, and before you know it, they're off to college. That's why securing their future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life helps make it simple to get term life insurance that fits your family's needs. With Fabric, you can apply for term life insurance online right from your couch. You can even do it while watching the basketball this week. You can be covered in under 10 minutes, and in many cases, no health exam is required. You get that peace of mind. You get affordable coverage. They have your back. So join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to protect their families. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. That's meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Price subject to underwriting and health questions. Again, meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. Here's more from our conversation with Joe Cook.
Tournament.
Yeah, Jekyll and Hyde's a perfect way to describe this team. Almost like a box of chocolates, right? You just never know what you're going to get from them on any given night. Joe, last basketball question. It feels so weird. We're talking about Texas maybe making a deep run in the tournament, and we're also talking about the coach maybe getting fired here in a couple of days. I guess the big question here is, do you think tonight's game or just this next few days impacts Rodney Terry's future in Austin?
You know, there's so much pressure on him, it feels like, because I think when we were talking about this a little bit, like, the standard at Texas has changed greatly within the past 20 years. And a lot of that was done by Rick Barnes. And you see what he's done at Tennessee and since moving past Texas as to why that standard's so high is that, you know, for the longest time, Texas was kind of just an also-ran program, even in a basketball league in the Southwest Conference that wasn't anything special. Aside from when Houston was doing some great things and Arkansas was also doing a couple great things, but that was after their move, I think. So, this has been a program that goes from basketball being something to fill time to Rick Barnes takes them to the tournament and often to the second weekend throughout the early 2000s. And it became this notion that missing the tournament is, I don't want to say almost unimaginable, because it basically everybody has their years where they miss, except for like the bluest of blue bloods. But Texas fans came to expect making the tournament. And there are going to be a lot of fans who say, you know what, the first four, that doesn't really count. And then they can look and see, like, you have one guy signed in his class and John Clark. Trey Johnson's leaving. Arthur Kaluma's leaving. Caden Shedrick's leaving. Jamon Mark's leaving. I mean, the list goes on and on. Yeah. You're going to have to rebuild another roster via the portal, and maybe some other high school signees who break from their commitment because of coaching changes, all that different stuff. And you wonder, you just built a 19-15 team. You just barely made it into the tournament. Are you going to be able to pull a rabbit out of a hat again? And I can see why there's a lot of people who would doubt that, including members of the Texas administration. The other thing is, we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording. The amount of money that Texas has had to spend on like coaching changes in basketball over the past, 3 decades, even 4 decades almost, not a whole lot. Yeah. A lot of coaches a lot of schools spend as much as Texas has on coaching changes once. In Texas, across Penders to Barnes, Barnes to Shaka, Shaka to Beard, Beard to Terry, they've, some other schools, that's a coach's yearly salary. It's one of those things where they have an opportunity to do something maybe they never had before. It's a school-friendly contract. And if Texas kind of feels like, hey, what we're seeing from this program and Rodney Terry having to go back portal hunting again for just about an entire roster without a lot of traction within the state of Texas, because you and I know very well there are some very talented basketball players, not just from the city of Dallas, but also from the city of San Antonio, who I think one's going to Duke, one's going to the University of Houston. Mm-hmm. There's guys from Arizona, if Texas is recruiting nationally, Arizona and Idaho, weird recruiting ground, that Texas tried with but did not get enough traction. I think administration can look around and kind of see like, okay, as long as a tournament appearance or a tournament run doesn't force our hand, we may be able to make some sort of hard decisions and put ourselves out on a very weak coaching market, because aside from like Indiana, you're probably not fishing in lofty waters. Iowa, North Carolina's not doing a coaching change this year. I know Iowa is in the midst of trying to hire somebody. Like, it's not a bad time to be a buyer, but at the same time, it's not. It also doesn't appear as if there's a bunch of great options to buy as well. It's a very weird carousel, and Texas would be making a little bit of a calculated risk, and obviously one that they feel is worth it should they hop on the carousel and get on for the ride.
Yeah, it's a weird conundrum that Texas is in, right? Like you want to go on a deep tournament run, but then you wonder, is that what's best for the long-term health of this program?
You root for wins.
I know.
Wins.
I'm in. Like I want banners. I want this team to go to a Final Four and cut down some nets and end up hanging a banner at Moody Center. That would be fantastic. But you also, it's like, if you are going to make a change, and maybe this administration is dead set on doing that, don't you want to make that change as soon as possible? And you talk about Villanova and Iowa and Indiana and these other jobs being open. There's not a ton, but you'd like to get out in front of those other teams so you can hire the guy you want, instead of, oh, shoot, our top target couldn't wait any longer, so he's off with another school. Like, I don't know how much that goes into any decision-making here, but that is something that obviously is at play now that Texas has actually made the tournament.
Yeah, this will be, if they decide to make a change, this is Del Conte's third try hiring a coach, because he hit every right call on Beard that everybody knew that was going to be the one. He made the decision to retain Rodney Terry and keep him as permanent head coach. And if he makes a change, now he gets number 3. And I know football is the king at Texas, but men's basketball is the second leading profit getter. It's important. You've got a brand new arena. And so he's getting a third opportunity to find a coach. And, you're kind of assuming that if, Texas gets knocked out pretty early in that scenario, and that gives them a little bit more stronger license to maybe part ways with Rodney Terry. Chris Del Conte took over as athletic director in late 2017, I believe, and they've had one run to the second weekend. I know he wants to change that, and he wants to find the right coach get that changed. And, a lot of it might depend on what happens, but a lot of it, may have been already decided as well.
Yeah, you and I were at the town hall event a few weeks ago, and CDC talked about every Texas team competing in the top 5 in the country in their respective sports. So he didn't pull any punches when talking about the expectations. Steve Sarkisian has made another assistant coaching hire for Texas football. This one will hopefully help fix a major problem that plagued the Longhorns in 2024. We'll talk about that next right here on Locked On Longhorns. But first, a shout out to our friends at Monarch Money. You ever look at your bank account and wonder, where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where our friends at Monarch Money come in. They're your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over all of your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, all of your investments, all of your spending in one place, so you can stop just managing your money and start actually building wealth. It's all in one convenience. Juggling multiple apps can be a total pain. Hard to remember which one has this account, which one has that account. With Monarch Money, it's all there in one place. So managing your money is smoother than ever before. And hey, managing money with your partner is smoother because you can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com to get 50% off your first year. Again, monarchmoney.com is the website. The promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, and you're going to get half off your first year.
The NCAA Tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA Tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
A little bit more from Joe Cook of Inside Texas Nations. All right, Joe, we'll end with some Texas football conversation here. Speaking of teams at Texas competing in the top 5, the Longhorns have themselves a new assistant coach. You wrote a great piece about this yesterday over at InsideTexas.com. Texas has hired James Madison assistant special teams coach Matt Moran for a similar role here in Austin. I want to get your thoughts on the hire and what type of role you think Matt Moran is going to have here with the Longhorns.
How many football coaches do you think have philosophy degrees from liberal arts schools in Maine and then did some post-grad work at a master's program with Stanford?
Maybe Bobby Slowick, the former Texans OC, because he was a nerd and worked for Pro Football Focus. But outside of that, I'm going to go with 0, Joe.
So that's what Matt Moran offers. Texas hired him from James Madison. He spent 1 year with the Dukes. Prior to that, he had 1 year with Boston College, and I think that would have been with Jeff Hafley before he went to the NFL. And then he has 8 years of experience, almost a decade of experience, actually, between Stanford and Rutgers. And he's been a special teams guy. I talked to somebody who's a FCS coach with a special teams title, and he says, like, this guy has been pretty well liked. He has pretty good special teams over at James Madison. Always thought to be one of the better ones. I believe they're in the Sun Belt, and that punt is his baby. So, that was an area where Texas had a little bit of a step back. And there are some times when I wonder, like, how much does a coach who focuses on the specialist, who's coaching the kickers, who's coaching the long snappers and the punter specifically, how much impact do they have? Because it's like, all right, go kick the field goal. All right, punt it. But there is stuff they can do. And so one of the things he'll be asked to do is definitely help not only Michael Kern develop, but also Jack Bomeister, the Utah grad transfer, help him figure out, how to fit into the different schemes that Jeff Banks and company like to use. But he'll also be a big part of determining who the Texas Longhorns starting kicker is this coming fall. We saw Bert Auburn really after a great 2023 where he was Mr. Consistency, not have that consistency in 2024. And when you're looking at a kicker, you want him to be clutch. You want him to be able to deliver in those big moments. And that wasn't what was able to happen, looking not just at the SEC championship game, but even in the Peach Bowl as well. So he'll be charged with trying to get the most out of Will Stone and Bert Auburn. He'll be there working alongside Jeff Banks and helping that crew. And he's got some decent-sized shoes to fill. I know that Bert had his step back, but Jeff Crosby, who left Texas to go take on a special teams coordinator role at App State, was very well liked by all the specialists and very well liked by some of those specialty coaches in the not the high school ranks, but in the instruction ranks who deal with long snappers and deal with kickers and that type of thing. But to get somebody to step in for him, who has over 10 years of experience, who's been able to help some really good punters, including Ryan Sanborn at Stanford when he was there on the farm. It seems like a decent hire and a good opportunity for him to prove his worth at a great city and help some a well-liked special teams coach and Jeff Banks get the most out of the Longhorns' third phase this year.
Yeah, that's the beauty of being a coach at the University of Texas, right? You can hire a bunch of assistants to help get things figured out, and Steve Sarkisian's utilizing his resources. And look, special teams was a problem for the Longhorns last year. I think most Texas fans have faith in Jeff Banks because the first 3 years he was here, the special teams was really good. But last year, as you mentioned, things slip up a little bit. So maybe Matt Moran getting a fresh set of eyes in here can help clean up some of those things. Last thing, Joe, you brought up Bert Auburn. What's your faith in him? If it's not Bert Auburn, what's your faith in Will Stone? And, is that an area where when the portal opens up again after spring ball, you think Texas could be looking at to address that need?
Now that we're still in the 85 world, and even though all the house case stuff is happening, if SEC teams are going to be living in the 85-man roster world, it's really hard for me to think dang, they're going to add a third scholarship kicker. That's the route they're going to take. Yeah. I bet what they hope is that competition breeds, better results for both those guys, whether it's Stone, whether it's Auburn. At this point, I know that they are recruiting high school kickers right now, including Martin Grammatica's son, because both those guys are going to clear out, after next year and be on their way to either a professional career in football or in the real world. So I don't feel like they're going to try and crunch another guy on the roster unless they know they have another spot and there's a guy available, just because you're carrying 5 scholarship specialists when you have this much of an important placed on the 10 guys around those specialists on special teams. I feel like that's a tough ask, and that the best case scenario is that between Bert Auburn and Will Stone, somebody comes around, makes the most of their opportunity. And, who knows, maybe one of those guys elects to leave and find a place where they know they're going to start and have all the roles that they want. It sounds strange to say that these specialists have ego, but if they have pro aspirations, they probably want to be the kickoff guy, and they probably want to be the field goal guy, or they probably want to do both at a certain extent. So, we'll see how that happens. But I think the idea that they would bring in a third kicker is tough, just because you're looking for another defensive tackle. Maybe later in the spring, you're looking for another running back. Maybe you're looking for a best player available option. Maybe you're looking for a clipboard holder or something like that. So I don't feel like adding another kicker is in the cards, and they're just going to have to get those thin goalposts out right in the middle of the regular size ones in order to make sure that Auburn and Stone make the most of their accuracy and start hitting field goals at a higher clip in clutch situations in 2025.
Like those Madden mini games back in the day. I like that. Joe Cook of
with
Inside Texas. Yeah. And the coffin corner punt. Oh man, that was as good as it gets right there. Thanks again to Joe Cook of InsideTexas.com for joining us, and thanks to you for making Locked On Longhorns your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On College Basketball podcast with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. March is here. The tournament is underway. So be the most informed college basketball fan throughout all the madness. Find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You know what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. The Texas Longhorns. Did they find a win against Xavier, or is the season over? We will recap the game on tomorrow's show. But we appreciate y'all tuning in today. Until next time, horns up, Mike's off. Thanks for tuning in. This is Locked On Longhorns.